You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Marie Vega, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We have a mutual friend, Gary Brugman,
Yes,
who we both barely like. And joking, Gary, because I know he's going to listen to this. But he introduced us, and you have a very, very interesting story to tell.
Yes.
It was 2014, correct?
That's right.
Tell us what happened then.
August the 3rd, 2014, we had made plans to go fishing at our favorite fishing spot in Santa Monica. My son, Javier Vega Jr., was a Border Patrol agent, and he had a day off. So he called and he says, "Mom, we want to come down, hang out with you guys, barbecue, get some. Andrea wants to do some shopping. We want to the boys want to do some fishing. Can we come over, make plans to spend the whole day together?" And it's like, yeah, absolutely. So in the process, the boys had been wanting also to get ready for hunting season. And they wanted to go do some target shooting, practice. So they each picked two guns, right? A rifle, and I believe it was a handgun or something like that. And anyway, everybody did everything they wanted to, and then he calls and says, "Mom, everybody's done. Do we go to the house and drop off?"
This was Harvey?
Yeah, Harvey. "Do we go to the house and drop off the weapons, or what do we do?" And I said, "No, let's just take advantage of the daylight, right? And we'll take the weapons from you when we get to Santa Monica." Well, on the way over there, we ended up catching up with each other, and we actually drove down to the levee together. Settled in, the boys cast their fishing rods, and Andrea and I were sitting, talking. Javier and Harvey were talking, and but let me back up a little. On the way down to our fishing spot, we saw a vehicle up on the canal bank or the levee bank, and it seemed kind of odd, right? Because normally anybody that's out there is fishing. They're never up there.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, just hanging out. So the windows are rolled down, and I wave. They don't wave back, but we do make eye contact. So anyway, we're down, settled in, and all of a sudden I turned. I was the closest one to where if anybody drove up, they drove up close by to me, right? And I see this vehicle coming down, and I said, "That vehicle that was up there is driving our way." And both Javier and Harvey figured, it's somebody wanting to ask, "How's the fishing? What are you using for, bait? And what are you catching?"
That's a pretty typical conversation, yeah.
It's 14 years of fishing there. And it was always that way, or just a wave, or hello. That was it. Well, anyway, they don't make it all the way up to where we're at, but they stop and reverse and drive away. This is the second time I see these two guys, right? And
so they've come through twice already. Or no, you saw them up the top.
The first time I saw them up there, and then the second time
down by the water.
Yeah, and so they drive back up, drive away. Well, we continue doing what we're doing, and all this happened like in a matter of 5 minutes. Third time, they're coming again, and I said, "That vehicle's coming back." And Harvey thinks, well, they're probably going to go past us and find another spot to fish, right? Because there's no room here. But Harvey kind of made his way back to one of the two trucks. My husband's truck and Harvey's truck were parked side by side, kind of facing north. And because the boys wanted to try some more shooting, target practice, they had put an AR up against the back tire of one of the trucks. So Harvey makes his way over, and all of a sudden, the vehicle comes to a sudden stop, doors fling open, and they're shooting at us. Never.
Now, you had grandkids there too, right?
Yes, actually it was Javier, myself, and then Harvey, his wife, and the middle child and the youngest. And now the middle child had one of his friends with him that had come to visit as well because he wanted to do some fishing too. And so they jumped out of their vehicle, both of them, shooting at us. And in the process, they shot Harvey in the chest and Javier in his back. And they continued shooting. What happened, Javier had his weapon on him, so he started firing back. I made my way up to where I saw Harvey fall, and I checked him, and I saw that he was shot, so I picked up the AR and started firing back. And that's pretty much when they kind of backed off and jumped in their vehicles, or in their vehicle. Now, this was 2 illegals that had been deported countless times, had served time in an American prison, had been fined $10 to get out of jail. They had weapons, something they shouldn't have had, and they were in a stolen vehicle. So,
Was there any words exchanged or anything? Did they say anything, or they just got out and started shooting?
No, the only thing that I heard was, and I think it was Tijerina, the one that said, "Al suelo, cabrones." That was basically it. Never, "We're here to rob you, give us your vehicles," nothing. It was just, they were there to do something, and they wanted.
When I was reading on the story, sometimes I try and think about things that lead up to or things that happen, and sometimes I wonder, if it was maybe like a Border Patrol sticker or something that somebody sees that kind of, when you already have a negative reaction to something or somebody, because it's terrible to think that somebody would just randomly come to, 3 generations fishing, and do something like that. But,
Right.
I mean, they're capable of it, obviously, but.
Yeah.
So how long did that exchange take place? Was it just a matter of seconds?
It was just a matter of seconds. I mean, it felt like an eternity, but it was very quick, very quick. And but they needed a vehicle. They actually needed an engine because apparently one of them had sold an engine and spent the money.
Oh, I see.
So he needed to find a way to
Get another vehicle.
Yeah.
So let's slow down a little bit. So you guys fire back. The guys take off. Did we lose Harvey immediately, or were you able to spend some time with him?
No, he pretty much I haven't seen the autopsy report. I haven't, that we weren't allowed to sit throughout the trial, so I didn't get to see
Oh, really?
any of the exhibits, or I didn't get to hear any testimonies or people that they called in as expert witnesses. I didn't get to hear. Everybody that was there when it happened was not allowed in the courtroom because we were witnesses ourselves.
Oh, I see.
So we couldn't listen to what anybody else was saying. We couldn't talk about it. We couldn't compare our stories. Nothing like that. But I'm sorry. What was your question?
No, just I guess Harvey had died immediately at the scene,
Oh, yes.
correct?
We picked him up and we put him in my husband's truck, and Javier and I drove him to the hospital. My daughter-in-law took the boys and drove to the hospital herself. But because of what I've heard, that Harvey's main artery was severed, so he basically bled out. And he wasn't, I was trying to talk to him when we were on the way to the hospital, but he wasn't responding.
Gotcha. And how was your husband as far as his mobility? Because he was shot in the hip or the back?
He was shot lower back,
Lower back.
upper hip area. But yeah, the amount of damage that he received was too extensive to repair. So, his tendons are not connected. So he has a lot of mobility issues, and of course this has been very traumatic. It's his firstborn son, and
Sure.
Only two boys, and we were always so close, so it's hard.
So the guys take off. How do they end up getting caught?
Again, the other, from what I've heard is that we damaged the vehicle from the bullets
Oh, I see.
from where we were shooting back at him. And so it broke down. And then they ended up walking a distance, and they came up to some lady's house, and they asked her for a charger because their phone was dead, and they started making phone calls. And apparently the lady, by this point, the Border Patrol, Texas Rangers, Willacy law enforcement officers in Cameron County, everybody was out looking for these guys because they had killed a government agent, right? And so she noticed that there was helicopters flying over her house, so she started flashing her front porch light, and that's when
Oh, so she had, I guess, maybe some idea of what these guys were.
she thought about it. Yeah, but she basically just gave them. They asked her for a phone charger, and she gave them a phone charger to charge their phones.
So did they end up picking these guys up at her house? Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming pretty typical without incident. They'd probably turn themselves in.
I don't know if they did, but
Let me ask you something, Marie, because when I heard you tell your story on Gary's podcast, one thing that really stuck out to me was how quickly you guys were we all like to think that when we're pressed or when we're in a position where we need to defend ourselves or we're in a position where we need to take care of our family, we like to think we can do it, but when it's really happening and it's in real time, there's a lot of things that probably go through people's mind, and sometimes maybe instincts kick in, maybe they don't. But what was your thought as soon as things started happening, and where were you, and as far as being able to, I guess, have your wits about you to immediately grab the gun and immediately shooting back, as opposed to having that fear? Was it a combination of having your family there and the kids there, or, did anything go through your mind, or was it all reaction?
I actually fell back when I heard the gunshots, and when I started to get up, I could hear the bullets flying past me, and I wanted to get to Harvey, so I literally crawled over there because I couldn't get up. I couldn't get my legs. I couldn't balance myself, so I just basically crawled to him. And then, like I said, I checked him, and I saw that he was shot, and I picked up the AR thinking, he's already killed somebody. He's not going to kill anybody else, or they're not going to kill anybody else. I need to defend my family. And I could hear Javier's gunshots. I could hear him firing his weapon as well. And I could hear the bullets coming out of the AR. but it jammed on me. And it's just, it was just I don't know if I want to say a motherly instinct to protect my family, but I knew that I needed to get them away from everybody. And I can see myself walking towards them, trying to make myself the target. And it's a good thing they retrieved.
Yeah.
So
And even though the gun may have jammed on you, you still did enough to make them realize that they were in a fight and they needed to get away. You were not easy targets,
right.
And there's a lot of people, like we talked about earlier, where whether they talk about guns or what kinds of guns, and it's like, when they're used by good people to
Right.
defend themselves, I mean, they're an important tool, And when you think about, and when anybody thinks about it, under these circumstances with these types of people that were there, had you not been armed, and I'll be honest with you, I typically will carry a handgun, there's plenty of times when I don't,
Yeah.
and to hear your story, I've got another buddy of mine, his name's Renee. He was shot in Houston and he had his gun on him. And to hear these stories and to hear how critical it is to have been armed, it's a terrible thought to think about how it could have turned out had you guys not been shooting back, defending
Right.
your family. So, I mean, it's that's tough to hear. It's tough to hear that you guys were in that position, and to go through what you went through. So they end up finding the two guys and they arrest them.
Yeah.
They've been arrested multiple times, right?
Oh, yes.
Both of them?
Yes. Yeah, and they would, I think at one point they were ordered to self-deport. You know how that goes.
That's like telling me to stay away from fatty foods, right? I mean, when you tell somebody to self-deport, I mean, that's basically, what is it? They call it the honor system on people that have been arrested multiple times for the same kind of deal. It's kind of a joke when you do that, when you ask that question, and it's comical in the sense that it's very naive and almost idiotic that you would have a justice system that would treat that as a type of avenue to get them to relocate, right?
I trust you to,
Out of all the things you've done already,
yeah.
Please go home.
Yeah.
So I was reading up on it, and I guess the trials ended in what do they say? The wheels of justice take a long time, right?
Yeah.
So I think their trials were over like in late, was it 17, 18, something like that?
Don't remember.
Because this was 14.
It was either 18 or 19.
18 or 19.
I don't remember right now. But it took almost 5 years. I mean, Harvey was taken from us in 2014, and I think it was like 4.5 years later that we actually went to trial for the first one.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you guys, and I'm asking you these questions because I want to know, right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people don't experience the experiences that you guys have already lived through, and the strength that you've gained by going through these trials, right? Mm-hmm. But when it takes that long, how did you guys cope with everything? I mean, we talked about my brother earlier and burying him several years ago, and I even forgot how many years it was when we were talking with my wife. It's like, but to wait 5 years to even have the first trial, how do you cope with that in the sense that, because we naturally want something immediately, but it takes so long to get anything started?
Yeah. I like to say that I'm a very patient person, but when it comes to my family and anybody causing harm or being bad to my family, I'm not a patient person. Sure. I understand that that's probably a tactic that attorneys use to make you forget.
Kind of put some distance between the
actual events, right? But as a mother, you don't forget. You don't. I mean, so it was very frustrating for me to wait so long. And I don't know if you've ever heard me talk, or you've seen, or you've heard my views about all this.
Sure.
I think, that as an American citizen, I wasn't born here. I don't know if you know that,
I
but
didn't.
I wasn't born here. I'm the daughter of an American dad and a Mexican mom.
Okay.
And the thing is that my dad did not, he went to Mexico and he met my mom and fell in love with her. It was love at first sight. He married her. He stayed over there because she was an American citizen, right? So he stayed over there, had the first three children, my brother, my deceased brother, my sister, myself. And when I was 3 years old, he decided that he wanted to bring his family to America to give them a better life. And he did it the right way. He didn't hire a coyote to cross the river. He didn't do anything illegal. He paid his dues. He filled out his forms. He waited his time and then brought us over here. My dad has never, ever received food stamps. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That, food stamps are there for
Sure.
a reason, right? He's worked all his life. He's been a farmer since a very young age because his family owned ranches. They own ranches in Olmito. They were farmers in Santa Maria, and even in Mexico. My grandfather had bought a farm over there. So he loved farming, and he always showed us that it was a good thing. It was an honest living.
Sure.
And, he taught us stay in school, work hard, respect your elders, respect your country. So, to have an illegal alien come into our country and then be allotted all these benefits and all these rights, and even past the point of where they've been, one of them received the death penalty. Now they have the appeals phase of the whole thing. Why?
Yeah.
It's very frustrating for me as a mom because it's like, no, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. They did this. Let's
Expedite this process.
Yes.
Yeah. What's a shame and what's difficult is there's too many times where we have somebody who's done something, they're in the death penalty, and through appeals they don't pay for. I mean, you can say they're in prison, and then that's a form of punishment, which it is. But when it comes to the death penalty, it's kind of like, well, that portion of it, they go the majority of their life before they pay for that one. And it's crazy that you'll put to death a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old when they committed a crime in their 30s or 40s. And that's a long time to claim that you've given justice. And to me, listening to you tell the story and trying to put myself in your shoes, which might be stupid on my part, but it's like it's a slap in the face. Even the way your dad coming over here, and doing it the right way and going through the process. We talked earlier about how broken the system is right now. I mean, and it's obvious. It's terrible. You live down here in the valley, and I've got folks in Live Oak County, and that's where I'm from. And it's funny because, I've got a lot of family that are originally from Mexico, and I'll be honest with you, I've never asked them, but there's a handful that probably didn't come here the right way. They've been here a long time and didn't, raised families and were productive and then now you have like just these swaths of people coming in. Yeah. And, I'm not opposed to when people do it the right way. Even family members of mine, when I look back in hindsight and go, oh, they didn't get in here the right way, but they lived a life that people should live. You know, they were productive. They had families. They did what they needed to do. They didn't take handouts. You know,
Right.
and but the scary thing that you see now with so many people coming in, that we talked about it earlier. My big concern is what happened to you, because when politicians play politics with the border and with immigration, it ends up putting your average Joe citizen, you know, your Marie Vegas, in a position one day that they may have to defend their life. You know, I talked to you about my sister out on her ranch and other people that I know, you know, and it's like, God forbid it come to that, but that's what you're building. You know, you're building a scenario where I always thought it was interesting, and I don't know the border and the behaviors of people coming across in and out, but one thing that always amazed me was, if the Border Patrol is picking people up under the current administration, this is the way I understand it. You know, you turn yourself in, they pick you up, they take you in, they process you, and eventually send you somewhere else, right? So to me, we're talking about that app that I had where you had all these bailouts and it's 4 or 5 in the morning, you know, and there's 10 to 40 people in each bailout. You know, one thing that I always wonder is, if you have the majority of people coming in, turning themselves in and being processed, why are these people running through ranches and trying to get away?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
what are you hiding, basically? Why wouldn't you do it just like everybody else?
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that's maybe not completely everybody in that truck bailing out, but there's a large element of people who are probably here to do illegal stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and commit crimes. I go home, and it was amazing. Yesterday, I went to go meet a gentleman. I'm trying to sell some property, so I went to go meet a gentleman over there, and I went home, and I went to some places I hadn't been before, and it was a lot of fun because I saw a lot of people that I recognized. But it was very interesting because I left home when I was, I guess, 19, 20. It's totally different. You know, you can tell there's a lot more drugs in the area. You can tell there's a lot more people affected by those drugs. Everything just looks worn out and run down.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I fear for my friends, I fear for my family, I fear for everybody else. You know, we're talking about my friend who gave Gary a helicopter ride. You know, he had a bailout in his ranch one time, and many people did down there. There's been, I think, people in certain parts of the country who, when they look down here and they see what's going on down here, they look at it from one perspective, right? And they go, well, these are just people looking for a better life. And there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
You know, but when you sit and you live in this area, you know, and you see what actually happens, you see what that hunt for a better life really looks like. And you see, you know, you hear the stories about people using children to get people across over here and back and forth over and over, and you see the crime. You know, I think there's a misconception where people think, well, all I need to do is get to the U.S., you know. But then you see places like Del Rio where there's people just camped out in front of gas stations and there's nowhere for them to go, you know. So then you end up with crazy, desperate people, you know. And then you add on top of that the criminal element. It's scary.
Well, yeah, and to add to that, I mean, what happens to you when you run a red light?
Get in trouble.
You get in trouble.
Yeah.
We have immigration laws, and they're not getting in trouble.
Yeah.
We have people that are trafficking children. What's happening to them? Nothing.
Yeah.
What happens to you if you leave your child alone at your home and somebody discovers that and calls CPS? They take your child away.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through classes. You have to prove that you're worthy of taking care of that child. But all these people are getting away with it. It's just
With what you've endured, I would imagine, what we're at 8 years removed. There has to be politicians and people who reach out to you. What is the sentiment you get from those folks? Do you get the feeling from people that you've talked to, whether they've come to you or you've run into them at other places, that it's a concern they're trying to fix, or is it just a political move to have a conversation and not ever really do anything about
I
it?
think there's a little bit of both. Or let me, most of them are legit and sincere and they want to fix the problem. But you do have the ones that just want it to be a political thing. And it's like, oh, I'll get a vote if, you know.
But talk to the right people
But
and
you
say the
know,
right
yeah,
things.
you know when they're legit, when they're really honest and, yeah.
So once the two guys were, I think one got death penalty and one got like 50 years or something.
Yes.
So you guys weren't able to be there for any of that stuff, even
Not for the trials, neither. Or,
Wow.
well, not for the trial.
So what happens after all that's said and done? You know, is it something your family has been able to kind of put those two guys aside and say, hey, we got to be patient for this? Because one's just going to do time, right?
Right.
No parole.
He will be eligible.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What year? Do you know?
No, I don't remember. I want to say 45, but I might be mistaken.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy that he would even have an opportunity to get out again.
Yeah.
And the other one, are they all housed here in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
The other one, and I'm going to ask you a question. You can feel free not to answer, but when it's time to go through with his execution, does your family plan on attending that?
I haven't discussed that with anybody, with any of my family members, but I can tell you that I will be there. And I've had a lot of friends in Border Patrol that tell me, yeah, we're going to be there. So,
It's a huge tight knit family, you know, Border Patrol agency.
yes, they are.
So that's nice that you have that
Support system.
support
yeah.
system.
Yeah, they haven't left us. They haven't left our side. They're always checking up on us, and they're just a great bunch of people, both men and women.
After I guess all of this has kind of gone through, I was reading online. They named a street after
Oh yes,
Javier Jr., right? And the Cerrito checkpoint.
yes.
well.
That just goes to show how loved he was. I mean, his classmates have. One of them reached out to me and said that he wanted, for Veterans Day, he wanted to donate a brick in Harvey's honor. And so he actually came down from California and did that. Then the chief of police from La Feria initiated the whole, the street that Harvey grew up in and the street that we still live in was renamed 5th Street to Javier Vega Jr. Street.
Okay.
The Border Patrol agents in...
My brother lived on 8th Street.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, and then Sarita checkpoint. I used to do a lot of wrecking with a team from Harlingen, the Roadrunner Wreckers of South Texas. And they even did a scholarship. And it was really
cool.
awesome because we had the students submit essays, of what they wanted to do and all this. And we didn't know who these kids were. But the one that really stuck out to us, we selected it. And we all liked it. And we selected that young man to receive the scholarship. It turned out to be a Border Patrol agent's son.
Really?
And I was
That's
like, oh my
awesome.
goodness, this was meant to be.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah, we have a lot of people that, come forward and say, we want to do this and we want to do that. And it's like, okay, let's do it.
So how are I guess we're somewhat like 8 years removed now, but how are your grandbabies doing and your daughter-in-law? How's today? How's everybody coping? I mean, there's never a good way to have lost somebody and to be able to deal with that. But are they doing well?
Yeah, they're doing well. The Harvey's oldest son is married, and he's a letter carrier. And then the middle child is getting ready to graduate from college.
Oh, wow.
Pretty soon. And the little one, the youngest one, he's expecting his first baby.
Oh,
So,
good. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So you're a great grandma.
Great grandma. Well, the oldest one has a
Oh,
5-year-old.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're a great grandma again.
Yes.
What's something that you want to share about Harvey that most people probably don't know, the type of person he was, and maybe some things that he was good at that maybe people didn't know, and things that you like to, little memory here or there that you like to remember about him.
Oh, let me see. Everything he did was always.
He was y'all's oldest, right?
Yes. We just had the two boys, Harvey and
Okay.
Jordy. They were about 6 years apart. And I mean, just from a very young age, he had a love for law enforcement. I think you've heard my story before, where he said he wanted to join the Marine Corps, started a family really young, and when he got out of the Marine Corps, he went to school on the GI Bill, was going to school full-time, working full-time nights, and graduated, got hired by Chris Despon in Kingsville as a biomed engineer.
Oh, wow.
But he kept seeing those Border Patrol agents coming in, and it's like, Mom, I want to be a Border Patrol agent. So it's like, okay, let's do it. You do it. You can do this. And he did. He got in. Of course, he served I think 6 years before he was taken from us. But yeah, he was, I don't know, he was a little brainiac, hated to show that he was really smart. Didn't like school, but somehow, some way, he knew how things worked, and he would. I think he was 14 years old when he took my stereo apart in my car. Well, he took the radio out and he put a stereo in there, and I was like, this is going to cost us money because we're going to have to take it to somebody to fix it, right? No, he fixed it. He did it himself.
Said he good mechanical mind.
Yeah,
That's good.
Mechanical mind. And then at another time, or lots of other times, he would open the hood and just take things apart from inside the car and put them back together. That's no problem.
You see some of those things in his kids.
Oh yes,
A lot of Harvey show up in them.
definitely, and in different aspects. It's like you have the oldest one that loves mechanics, the little one just knows everything. It's how do you even at 17? How do you even know all this? And then of course the middle one, he's just super smart.
Anybody have any indication or that they want to go into law enforcement or anything like that, or?
The middle one kind of has been hinting about it, but I don't know if it'll happen. I'd rather he use his smarts in another way.
Well, what's funny is you say how smart he was, but yet he still had that drive to become an agent.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because it takes a special kind of person to go into the military and also into law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I talk to people who are ex-military or ex-law enforcement, it's almost as if for a lot of people, that's just an option, but some people it's in them, it's ingrained in them to want to be part of that. And, because there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of adventures, there's a lot of things that go in that, and there's a certain mentality, I guess, where that's something that just grips people, and they got to do it. They have to do it.
yeah. No, but he was loved. He was very loved because I've had, oh my goodness, I've had so many of his classmates from different grades reach out to me and tell me stories from when they were in kindergarten that they remember, and it's like, wow, I didn't know all this. He was always a very reserved type of person. He never told people that he was in the Border Patrol. You know, he worked at Walmart. That was his thing. I worked for Walmart, you know.
Yeah.
But he was very reserved, and he never talked about his job, not, you know, outside. So
What were some of his goals, long-termish?
I don't know.
He just kept them to himself?
He just kept, yeah, he pretty much kept it to himself. But, you know, like I said, when you're 17 and you come to your mom and you tell her, Mom, I want to join the Marine Corps, it's like, wow, okay. You don't want to go to college?
Did you try to redirect him at all?
I tried it, but I could see that
He was
had
going.
he had his mindset, and it's like the youngest. He's also a Marine.
Oh, really?
Jordy's a Marine,
Okay.
and he had a full scholarship for. I don't know if it was Kansas State or it wasn't Texas. It was another state, but you know he could have gone to college and had his tuition paid for, but he joined the Marine Corps, and it's like I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but
No, I don't. You know what? I don't think you're doing anything wrong. And you know what's funny is you raised these boys, and they had dreams to go into the military. They had dreams to serve their country, and you know what? I think a lot of that comes from their parents. You know, and I think a lot of the wanting to serve, you know, willing to put themselves in danger, you know, that I think a lot of times is in the blood, you know. And when you guys defended yourselves and when you guys defended your families that day, that's what was running through their blood when they decided to join the Marines and when they decided to join the Border Patrol.
thank you.
You know, that's in you guys, you know. And I know that as a mother, you want to direct them to an office job,
Yeah.
you know, but that's not what was inside y'all. You know, what was inside y'all was being defenders and people that cared for other people and people willing to sacrifice yourselves to take care of others, you know. And I think that's what's in your blood. That's what's in your grandbaby's blood and your great grandbabies. It's always going to be there, you know, depend regardless of what avenue they decide to take in the future. You know, they're defenders of their family and they love their country, and that's just what's ingrained in all of you, I think, because that's when things got really bad. That's how you guys behaved, you know. And hearing your story with Gary, that's exactly what I thought when I got done listening to it. I remember thinking, these people defended their families and they didn't think twice about it, you know. And that takes a special kind of person. You guys are very, very special.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very proud of both of the boys. Harvey served during peacetime, but he got to travel. He was in Australia. He was in Japan. He was excited about crossing the equator twice, and
That's cool.
yeah. And then Jordy did 3 tours of Iraq and then 1 of Afghanistan. He's got a Purple Heart, and actually he has 2 Purple Hearts and a whole bunch of
Wow.
other medals. And he was shot. The first time that he was injured, he was there. His convoy hit an IED, and he was the first one to come to. So he started, you know, seeing that the what are the vehicles called? The Humvees
Oh, yes.
were on fire. He started pulling his men out of the 2 vehicles. So he saved them, but he did lose a couple. And then the second time he was shot in Afghanistan. So, but we're extremely proud of him. You know,
You got it. There's warrior blood in you,
Oh.
Marie. There's warrior blood in you.
I blame my dad.
Was he similar?
Well, he tells us all these crazy stories from growing up, and it's like, oh goodness. But
It's in your blood.
Yes,
Well, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you one more thing.
yes, sir.
I follow you on social media. What is it that you're doing with food?
Oh, there's a couple of churches in. One of them in Harlingen is where I work, and it's called Limitless Church. They give out food on Tuesdays, and anybody can go. But they discovered that when I pick up food, I actually don't pick up food for me. I take it to Santa Maria, Blue Town, even in La Feria. I know some families that can use it, so I distribute the food. And then the church on 7th Street in La Feria, Templo Evangelico, I think it's called, they know that I also pick up food and, don't keep it. I give it away. I go to give it. I know that, and you probably know that, like when you get in line and your vehicle's not that great and it starts to overheat, that just deters a lot of the people from
taking part.
Yeah, taking part. So I go get in line and I pick up the food and I go deliver it. But I don't mind.
You're an amazing woman, Marie.
No. No, I don't mind at all.
You're a good woman.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with me. Like I said, there's warrior blood in you guys, and I think everything that you do shows that, even from helping people get food, and raising warrior children, But thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I know we tried it several times and it's like just wasn't happening. And I told him, he's coming down. I'm going to be there. He's like, okay.
I appreciate you making time for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.